My name is Elliot Lewis. I'm the CEO of Cannabis Co.
They realize they don't have the law, that we got the law. And I'll get into the cover up in a little bit, but they've known this since 2018, 2019.
Nobody yet today, the city government, has ever given a good reason for the why.
Right, you have a cannabis good or you have a cannabis accessory. And we're talking about a multi-$100 million a year over taxation, right, that the state is engaging in. Everything they did was to cover this up so that the taxpayer wouldn't figure it out.
Why is there extreme discriminatory taxes on cannabis?
Let's say 2/3 of that is cannabis accessories. So they were overcharging tax by 2/3.
Cannabis Patterson, they came into the planning commission and they spoke. And anybody with any passion, any soul, and any leadership at all that heard that should have been moved, right? These are real people, these are real lives.
To take the title progressive and treat cannabis the way you're treating it is just the biggest, most disgusting, like backwards, flipped on its head thing that's ever happened. And then not only are they overtaxing it as a policy matter, and they aren't alleviating the tax, they covered it up and engaged in corruption. I think it could be the biggest, I don't want to say piece of legislation, and greed and corruption and self-interest and, perpetuating your next term and your next step. Cannabis has become a means to that end. And instead of uplifting an industry and providing medicine for people, it's turned into a money grab for the greedy politicians.
At the end of the day, all we want to do is work, support our people, and with our last breath, that's what we're going to do. Weed for the people.
Yeah, so there's only two things as far as like what categories are in when you're looking at a complete product, right? You have a cannabis good or you have a cannabis accessory.
What does that mean? A lot of people don't really understand that difference. The idea is that every product that when you buy a cannabis or cannabis good from a retailer is made up of three things: either cannabis, cannabis product, or a cannabis accessory. I brought this one out just to kind of give a visual. Take a look at this cart. Somebody's buying this cart, it's gonna go to a battery, they're gonna heat up the oil that's inside and ingest it. But the reality is you're not just purchasing cannabis, right? What you're purchasing is an entire contraption. A lot of the cost that goes into this thing is in this whole cartridge contraption that gets attached to the battery. What ends up happening is you get to enjoy whatever flavor you enjoy, but what's inside there is what we call the cannabis product. Everything else, including the cart, the packaging that comes with it, the little plastic pieces that go around it, that's by definition a cannabis accessory. And our understanding of the tax code is that 15% cost that the customers are supposed to pay is only on that 1 gram or half a gram, whatever the product is you bought, of the oil that you're purchasing.
Anything else in there, whether it be flavoring, whether it be terpenes, whether it be the cartridge, whether it was the testing cost, all that is clearly defined in cannabis accessory, and there's just no getting away from those definitions. So, it was brought to my attention, and I was like, hey, sounds interesting, and I think everybody's first reaction is the same, like, this doesn't sound correct. So I looked it up, started researching it, and came to believe that in fact was the correct opinion, and that taxes should only be, applied correctly to anything that is defined as a cannabis good. So in the case of flower, it's just the flower specifically, nothing that goes into marketing, packaging, nothing beyond that. Testing anything like that is not a cannabis good, right? That was the intent of Prop 64. It's very clear. Right, so let's just say that 2/3 of what gets sold in a total bundle of cannabis products and cannabis accessories, an item you would buy, let's say 2/3 of that is cannabis accessories. So they were overcharging tax by 2/3. So a lot of negative implications. First and foremost, most of that gets passed on to the consumer, but also because, of the poor tax policy in the state, 2/3, 70% of the market share in California is the black market. So, it didn't allow legal companies to compete with the black market. Most of the people that are going out of business at this point are going out of business for excise tax bills. We're actually talking to people to this day that are unable to pay the excise tax bill. So not only has it destroyed the industry, that cost ultimately is being passed on to the consumer, which is the most regressive tax there is. And we're talking about a multi-$100 million a year overtaxation, right, that the state is engaging in. Furthermore, I look around the office and all the stores too, bud tenders, these are people that we're at fucking war with. Like, this ain't no easy sport. We're a motherfucking war. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking to myself, we got the law. I love these fucking people that I'm at war with. Why the fuck we gonna hand the money over to the government that they don't deserve? Come and get it, motherfuckers. So that's, I think the attitude that's starting to take shape. But look, it's caused higher prices, a bunch of people to go out of business, lower wages. So in so much as that our state claims to be progressive, every cannabis policy that is put together is actually the most possibly regressive. Bad for job growth, bad for upward mobility. Cannabis is a great opportunity to have an entry-level job and move your way up. Like a third of our headquarters started as, a bud tender or reception, which is really cool. In fact, they're more valuable a lot of times than people that came from other industries. And then on top of that, the consumer is, taking the blunt of it. So all these things that the California claims to be for, the overtaxation of cannabis does everything the opposite. The other one is, social equity. They keep pushing the social equity programs, which we agree. We need to right the war on drugs. So how are social equity people going to be successful in this framework? So everything that they claim they're about, they do the opposite in the taxation policy. So to take the title progressive and treat cannabis the way you're treating it is just the biggest, most disgusting, like backwards, flipped on its head thing that's ever happened. And then not only are they overtaxing it as a policy matter, and they aren't alleviating the tax, they covered it up and engaged in corruption. Yeah, at first I just was like, wow, this is kind of interesting. And as we started doing it, we realized like, wow, there's quite a bit of tax savings here. And again, savings or reduction is not the word I would necessarily want to use, but we were paying the right amount, which was less than overpaying, which was what I think most people have been doing. So pretty soon thereafter, they audit our distribution. So we're under audit, and not just audited. They come in here, they camp out for a week, 3 agents from Sacramento. So we're in some shit, right? They were in our office for a week. Imagine having auditors in your headquarters just sitting here for a week, and I'm going in there telling them like, yo, y'all wrong, right? So now I got it in writing that we got it correct, and they were like, yo, you paid this, but you really should have paid this. And my answer was exactly this, no fucking shit. We paid what we're supposed to pay. We actually overpaid. Next quarter, you're gonna get less. So we win the 2022 audit, right? They realize they don't have the law, that we got the law. And I'll get into the cover up in a little bit, but they've known this since 2018, 2019. Everything they did was to cover this up so that the taxpayer wouldn't figure it out. So they come up, they're on tilt, as I call it. They're on motherfucking tilt. So what they do is they pass emergency regs 3802.
They had to make up new regulations on the fly, out of nowhere, to try to prove their own point. Only problem with that is that they're not allowed to just make up the law as far as we're concerned. And so they pass these regulations under the emergency rulemaking process, and we can get into that, but it's a very, very technical area of the law. But what they're doing is that they're trying to substitute what the legislator put down in a statute with what they think should have been put down in a statute. And that is a problem. And they want to contradict their own position, which was cannabis accessories were not subject to the cannabis excise tax. But they won't point out to anything that's changed in the law that would allow them to change their mind on the issue.
What they're really saying is we don't like how Catalyst files. We hope that more people don't file like this. We're a greedy, corrupt institution, and we want to change the game, and we want to move the goalposts. And we're like, fuck you, you can't do that. So we got them on the law. We beat them in 2022, fucked their ass up, stood toe to toe. They had, like I said, a team of auditors in here. So what are they going to do? They're going to pass emergency regs. There's no emergency. So besides the fact we have them on the law, there's no emergency. You can't do this for all these reasons. There's no emergency. It's essentially a tax raise, et cetera, et cetera. Look, on good information, Gavin Newsom is running point on this. And look, at the end of the day, I don't know what Gavin Newsom's calculations are in life. I don't really have a strong opinion of him. I don't know him as a person. But one thing I know is he's destroying the cannabis industry, and I believe he's doing it for political reasons. Why did you take the office to run the state of California? Did you take it just so you could aggrandize yourself, enrich your friends, enrich your special interests, use it as a stepping stone to become president? Or did you take it to be a public servant? And being a public servant in this case means figuring out a way to make the cannabis industry successful. That's always been the goal. There's no reason why you're trying to destroy it and rip it limb to limb. And if, as a political calculation, you've decided that your law enforcement, environmental, and SEIU buddies need to get the money, get it from somewhere else. The cannabis industry is it's like stealing from a poor little infant, right? We're just barely started. And there's so many places you could get it, right? But for whatever reason, you've decided to punitively tax and destroy cannabis. And I think one of my biggest fears is these taxes will get reduced, but maybe they don't get reduced until big tobacco and big alcohol and perhaps even big pharma come in and take over. And I'm not too conspiratorial on it, but there's a very good chance that California is doing this intentionally to make sure that none of us get too big or too valuable, so that when federal legalization comes, the big boys could just come in and kill us all off. And believe me, once big alcohol or big pharma or tobacco has control of the cannabis industry, they'll get the taxes to zero. But ultimately, the end game to this, I would estimate that the amount of taxes paid on just excise, right, there's still municipal and sales tax, would be reduced by at least 2/3. And the hope would be better wages, better, cheaper medicine, for the people, and then a closer but not even playing field to be able to compete with the black market. Because this idea that we're going to enforce against the black market is just stupid. It's never going to happen. As long as there's a 40% tariff on cannabis, it's never going to happen. And this will be a big step. I think there's more hills that we'll, need to take. I believe we're going to be successful, and we're going to knock out hundreds of millions of dollars in excise tax every year, allowing an industry in California that's just dying to survive, and then hopefully in the future thrive. I think a lot of people have asked how you could help. Whatever litigation is litigation. There's going to be some money involved in that. I think we're okay to carry that ball forward, but I think the best way people could help is just to spread the word and do it. Can they get us all? And then frankly, they're on the losing side of the argument. So yeah, anybody who reaches out, asks, DM me. I did a tutorial not too long back that's on my IG page. If you want any more information, the idea is to share it and to spread it. At the end of the day, we got to free the weed. We got to take care of the workforce. We got to take care of the customers and people that believe in plant medicine and people that work in the industry. It's just fucking basic.